Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. You're listening to the Let's Talk About It show with me, Sharmeen Ziauddin. It's Thursday, 6th of May. This is Ramadan Radio London on 87.9 FM on ramadanradio.org and streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. You can join in with the conversation today with any questions for our special guest, which I will be introducing in just a minute. The number is 077-614-60614. That's 077-614-60614. Right, I hope everyone's doing really well today. So today we've got a very special guest. We have an actor, he's a comedian, he's now an author and a producer, Tez Ilyas, and you may have seen him on Man Like Mabeen on the BBC or Netflix and on numerous panel and comedy shows. I've spotted him as well. So welcome to the show, Tez.
Assalamu alaikum, Sharmeen. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for that very nice introduction.
Walaikum assalam, absolutely, no problem. I saw you yesterday on Steph's packed lunch as well, so mashallah, you're doing the rounds.
Yeah, it was nice. I haven't been on a TV set for a while, and then they invited me a couple of weeks ago to promote my new book, and then they really liked me, my vibes, I should say, and so they invited me back quite quickly to come and do a feature on the show. So that was really fun. It was nice. They're good people, and it's really in Leeds, so it's nice to do things up north and not having to travel to London for everything.
Right. So in case anybody didn't know, you're from Blackburn, right?
I am, yeah. I'm wearing my Blackburn Rovers shirt right now, and away top from a couple of years ago.
It looks like you're in Norway or something with your background.
I am, yeah. Actually, I'm really up north. Like when I say up north, I mean like like North Pole. You can see it's nighttime here. The lights are out and that. We thought we'd put a bit of a show on for you guys.
Cool. No, it looks good. So let's start with talking about how the last year's been for you as a stand-up comedian. Obviously, gigs and things, everything was like completely dead. How's it been?
Really hard. I mean, I do a few things, but stand-up comedy was like my main thing. A, that I enjoy, and B, that I do. And so not being able to do that, not being able to go to live clubs and live theaters and places like that to entertain people in person was very difficult. We do a few things over Zoom, but it's not the same. It's not the same thing. It's Diet Coke in it. It's not the real thing. So I know some people enjoy Diet Coke, not me though. I like the real thing. So it's been really hard, but we understand that everyone's got a responsibility and a part to play, and so sacrificing, us having to make a sacrifice. We're just one of many, many, many thousands and millions of people around the world who've also had to make sacrifices, and we've seen what's happening, unfortunately, in India over the last couple of weeks. How important it was that we did do that, because it's been devastating here, but it could have been even worse if we didn't abide by the rules and all that. So yeah, I mean, we've done other things as well. We've written a book and stuff, so we've kept I've kept myself busy, trying to do other things and spending more time with my family, which has been amazing. So yeah, you try to make the best of a bad situation.
Yeah, we'll talk about your book in a minute, but before we talk about your book, I think I want to know, how did you get into comedy? Like, was it something that you'd always wanted to do, or was it accidental? Like, how did it all come about?
Nah, not like it was completely accidentally. If you told me when I was a kid, 13, 14 in high school or whatever, or when you grow up, you're going to become a stand-up comedian, you might as well have told him you're going to become an astronaut. Like, it was so far removed from any experiences I had when I was younger. It was like, what the hell are you on about? What am I going to go to the moon after that? Are you mental? So I was in my mid-20s working in London, looking for something to do in the evening to occupy my evenings, maybe a hobby or something. And I was looking for a creative writing workshop. And Googling, I accidentally came across a stand-up workshop. And I thought, my friends always tell me that I'm funny. Maybe I should give this a go. I want to meet new people as well. Worst case scenario, I'll make a fool of myself. I can live with that. So I signed up to this thing. It was 1 day a week for 6 weeks. It didn't teach you how to be funny, but it teaches you the mechanics of stand-up, which is different to just being a funny person. And at the end of it, there was a showcase where everyone was in the workshop. They invited their family and friends to come watch what we prepared over the previous 6 weeks. And when it was my turn, people laughed in the right places, and I got bitten after that. I jumped onto the London open mic circuit, and just hit it right from the bottom, right at the bottom of the ladder, and just started working my way up.
And was this, how old were you? Like, were you?
I was 27. So it's 2010. So it's 11 years ago next month that I had my first ever gig. And I was doing that, 2-3 times a week in the evenings, balancing that with my day job. So it went from like a little hobby to serious hobby to a part-time job to a second job. And eventually I left my day job and started doing stand-up comedy full-time. And here I am now.
And what was your day job?
So I got onto the civil service graduate program, the fast stream, very competitive thing it was, or still is actually. And they put me in the Home Office. So I was at the Home Office for 10 years from 2006, from October 2006 to October 2016. I did exactly, almost to the day, I did exactly 10 years.
And what did your family think of you sort of making that progression from hobby to full-time job? Like, were they supportive, or did they say, what on earth are you doing?
Well, it was mixed, right? So like some people were supportive and some people were like, Mom was like not keen at all, because like I said, these things are very removed from experience, with second, third generation immigrants. Our parents didn't come here to do work in the arts. They came here to graft, to make sure their kids got good education and then got good jobs. They didn't envisage us ending up in these careers. But if we're British as anyone else, then we're in, we should be going for any type of career that there is in this country. And so we shouldn't hold kids back who've got ambitions or dreams of wanting to be in the arts and stuff. So yeah, it was a really mixed response. But because I was in London, living on my own, well, I was living in a house share, but I didn't have any family down here to like keep an eye on me or tell me what to do or whatever. I was able to just go out and embrace stand-up comedy and do it whenever I wanted to do. So I was able to like pursue that part-time hobby going into a fledgling career. I was able to pursue it without any hassle, because there's no one telling me where are you going this evening, this whatever. So I wouldn't have been able to do the same thing up north. So I was in the right place at the right time.
And then I guess from comedy, you kind of went into acting. I'm assuming it was just you were again in the right time, at the right place at the right time.
Yeah, opportunities came along and I didn't say no to them. I had an opportunity to make a couple of smaller things first. So there was the fasting video that I made for the BBC, The Fast and the Fool. So that was out. That was the first kind of proper acting thing that I did, I wrote that myself and then was in it. I then got to do something for Sky, a little comedy thing for Sky. And that's when I first worked with Guz. So we'd met a few months prior to that and we got on really, really well. And we thought we should work with each other. So when I got the opportunity to put him in something, I did that straight away. Then he got an opportunity to make the pilot for Man Like Mobeen for BBC. He put me in that. And then when the pilot became a full series, he was like, yeah, I need Tez to stay in this. And then, yeah, so I stayed in and became 8 as the character that people know now. Yeah. And then, we're just taking every opportunity our way that we can.
So tell me about 8. So that character, was that based on yourself, or was it Guz Khan made?
I mean, do you think it's based on myself?
I don't know. No, it's not. It is a little bit though. A little bit.
How? Which part? Tell me.
The northern part.
Well, that's just my accent, isn't it? Like when I do a bro accent, it's just it's like a Bradford accent in it. So that's like geographically, yeah. But in terms of like who the character is, it's obviously it was created for the show, and Guz just explained to me that this guy is just he's the sada dumb kind of guy who says the wrong thing at the wrong time constantly. So I just kind of picked up on that, and what was in the script I elevated and did some improv and put some more lines in when we were shooting. And yeah, now and again, even when it wasn't a line, I just ad-libbed a line and just threw it in there, because I knew if he's dumb, then he's just going to say a dumb thing. This is an opportunity for him to say a dumb thing. So yeah, it was just a really, really fun part to play.
Yeah, so if anybody hasn't seen Man Like Mobeen, 8 is a very interesting, but as you said, dumb character, but very funny. And I think a lot of people really like him because, you feel sorry for him because he's a bit stupid.
He's innocent, sweet, naive. He's got his own internal logic that doesn't, that no one else can quite understand. And yeah, no, he's a really joy to play.
So is he gonna make a comeback, or is it over now with 8?
Spoilers, you just told people that to watch it, and if they haven't seen it.
I haven't said anything.
Oh, no, I'm out. I'm out. I'm done.
You're not gonna come. Okay, you're definitely out.
No,
Okay.
I'm out. I'm
You're not
out.
gonna
I'm
come
out.
back as well, I have spoiled it, and I'm gonna spoil it now by saying a ghost. But
No, not as far as I'm aware. No,
that's a
not that I know.
possibility.
I mean, anything's a possibility, isn't it? Like an evil twin or whatever, but not that I know.
Okay. But is there another series being made?
There is another series. I don't know when it's going to get made though, because of the pandemic and all that. Obviously, everything's been rescheduled, and so I don't know.
Right. You spoke about a book, and was that something you wanted to do, or is that literally just being in the pandemic, not having anything to do?
It happened now because of the pandemic, because I needed something to do, so I need to occupy myself with a project, and it was the perfect time to do it. I think like I have always wanted to write a book, not necessarily this book that I wrote, but I just like, it'd be cool to, in the way that, how cool is it to write a book? I just thought it'd be cool to write a book. And then when we get the opportunity to write this book, I was like, yeah, I mean, it's an easier book to write than a novel, right? Because it's about me, it's about my story, it's my memoirs. So I'm just writing about myself. Obviously, gonna make it interesting and funny and whatever, but it's still about myself, so I can do that. So yeah, alhamdulillah, I've written a book. It's right here, The Secret Diary of, my silly green screen. But yeah, The Secret Diary of a British Muslim, aged 13 3/4. It's out now. It's it's a proper book.
It's a proper book, hardback and everything.
In it.
Is that, and it's not for it's for adults. You are aged 13 3/4.
Yeah. The book is my memoirs from age 13 to 18. But it's not a kid's book. It's like, I would say like 16 is the absolute minimum. Because there's a lot of stories in there that are like, it's written for adults, saying, look at like what my childhood was like, and it's quite raw and warts and all. It's funny in places, but there's also a lot of drama as well. A bit of bad language, because that's how I spoke at the time. I tried to be authentic to how I spoke at the time, and so I wrote this in that language. So yeah, I think anyone 16 plus, I like to say, like for younger generation, it's important to read about stories of people who came before them. What it was like for us growing up, because when we were, when I was that age, and sure, when you were younger, we didn't have these books from our elder generation of what it was like for them growing up. So I'm hoping to this is my snapshot of the 90s and what it was like for British Muslims up north, but also for our, for my generation to look back and reminisce and be like, that's what it was like, the bit of sentimentality and all that, and then for the older generation to look at us and be like, oh, okay, that's why they were acting such like fools, because that's what their life was like.
So we've got a few questions that have come through. Here's one for you. Let's start with this one. Do you think portrayal of Muslim characters on screen affects people's perceptions of Muslims in society?
What was it again?
Sorry, I read that really badly. Do you think the portrayal of Muslim characters on screen affects people's perceptions of Muslims in society?
Yeah, it will do. If the only Muslim person you meet, if unless you come from a town, a mixed town, like London and Manchester and Bradford, Birmingham, Luton, these kinds of places. If the only time you come across Muslims is via the news or via what TV portrayals, and a lot of the times those are negative portrayals, then it will eventually, even if you're a well-meaning person, and not everyone is well-meaning, but even if you're a well-meaning person, it will eventually paint a picture. I remember, I mean, it happens to me. I remember when I was watching, I went to Turkey a few years ago, and I had this perception in my head that Turkish people were rude. And I don't know what it was based on. I'd never met a Turkish. I'm in Blackburn. There's not a lot of Turkish people here. Like I met maybe a couple of Turkish people in London, but I never really had Turkish friends though, apart from one at uni. But I never really, met Turkish people properly. But in my head, my perception was that they're quite rude and stuff. And I was like, what was that based on? It's probably based on stuff that I'd heard and read about Turkey in the media, right? But when I went there, they were super friendly. I was so taken aback and quite ashamed of myself that I had this view of them and I'd never really met or spoken to them. So, if I've got that and I'm a bit conscious about, race and culture and that sort of stuff, then obviously, people in this country who only ever see Muslims portrayed on the media, and a lot of that portrayal is negative, then it is going to color their perception of us. So, yeah, I take that point.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of your comedy that stand-up material is quite political. Was that a deliberate, I mean, obviously it's deliberate, but when you got into comedy, did you always think that's what you're going to try and do, or was it just a natural?
No, just that natural. It's what I find. I find political comedy funny myself. So, my favorite comics, like all sorts of comedy, but my favorite comics are like Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock and people like that. And even on TV, like the funniest comedies for me, like stuff like South Park, that do touch on real life issues. That's the stuff that I find funny, and that's the stuff that I can make funny. So that's what I do. But it's not a conscious thing for me. First and foremost, I always entertain. Like, I'm aware. Like, I don't want to ever be labeled like an activist. Like, I want to be an entertainer. Like, I want to entertain people. If they also get something else out of it, then that's a bonus. But I'd rather they left my show going, oh, that was really, really funny, that. And also it made me think a little bit, rather than, wow, that really made me think a lot. And it was quite funny. I'd always on the first one, because I'm an entertainer. Like, that's what I'd rather, that's my job. But that's what I can make funny. That's what I know how to make funny.
Okay, so as a Muslim celebrity, have you faced negativity from our community, or not our community, just based on the fact that you're Muslim and you're quite out there, and your comedy is quite blatant. As you said, it's political. A lot of it is. What has your experience been? Have you had any backlash?
I mean, a little bit online, right? Like, there are those people who from our community who might not understand necessarily what you're doing, and they don't like it. So there's a bit of that. Not that much though, I'll be honest. Not a lot. I think also like our community, because our community have now started going to stand-up comedy more and more. And the people that follow me online probably follow me because they enjoy what I do. So not a lot, a very minimal amount from our own community. There is a bit, obviously, but not loads. And then a bit like, from the usual idiots like far right EDL types who obviously take issues with what I say and do. And if I'm overly political online, like, a couple of years ago when I was overtly supporting Corbyn and stuff, people didn't like that very much. So, it comes with the territory. You have to just, deal with it as and when it comes. But yeah, there are always people who want to take what you see out of context as well and strip any context of what you were saying and try to make it something like a joke into something more than what it was. But most people understand what it is that you're trying to do, and that stuff, like, it can be quite scary sometimes, but thankfully it doesn't gain too much traction.
Well, that's good to hear. For listeners who've just joined, you're listening to the Let's Talk About It show with me, Sharmeen Ziauddin, on Ramadan Radio London, 87.9 FM, and on ramadanradio.org. And we are streaming on Facebook. You can call or get in touch with us with any comments or questions for Tez on 077 614 60614. We've got a couple of questions. So this is a comment, I think. Though it's unfair, Muslims in the public eye are automatically held up as being examples of Islam and expected to be Islamic role models. Has this made you more conscious of your public behavior, or even actually helped you to cut out any bad habits? And that's from Burhan.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're always conscious of, like, not disrespecting your faith and stuff. So, in my comedy, whenever I talk about being Muslim, it's about people's perceptions of Islam rather than Islam itself. So because I'm a practicing Muslim, so it's always what people think of us rather than the religion itself. And then obviously there's jokes to be made about Muslims and the way we behave as well. So yeah, I'm always conscious that, you never want to bring yourself into disrepute and stuff. But, people do also make mistakes and stuff. So I think we've got to, that's part of being a human being as well, and learning from those and making sure you don't repeat them.
Talking of, representing, the Muslim faith, you've helped produce a short film.
Yeah. So a film called Tasbih, which is made by a very, very talented filmmaker who's from Huddersfield in Yorkshire, called Iqbal Mohammed, and it's called Tasbih, and it's a short film, 10-minute short film about two friends from a generic northern town like somewhere like Bradford. One has left for university, one stayed in the town and carried on doing what he was doing before. And then it's a summer break, and they meet up again on this evening. And yeah, the story just tells us about what they're up to in their life and how things have changed and how they feel about each other now. And it's a very powerful film. And yeah, I'm looking forward to when it's completed and people can watch it and stuff. But yeah, Iqbal asked me to become an executive producer for that film, and I'm really conscious that we need more representation. If we're complaining about the bad representation that there is out there about Muslims, then we gotta readdress the balance by putting good stuff out there. And good stuff doesn't always mean like, oh, look how happy we are and stuff. It's about like, but it's real stories that we can actually see and be like, okay, it might not be a positive story, but at least it's real. It's not like a cliche, it's not a stereotype. It's coming from a real place and stuff. So yeah, I'm always very keen to make sure that our voices are represented. So yeah, when he asked me to become an executive producer, I was delighted.
So, I mean, we see quite a lot of like Asian comedians and in other parts of the media, but obviously there's still not enough. How do we get young people to sort of who maybe aren't as academic or don't want to follow those traditional career paths? How can we encourage like the youth to get into arts and media without upsetting their parents? Or is it the parents that need to chill out? I mean, they are obviously
no, it's the parents who need to chill out, really, because kids have got this now. I mean, we had it as well, but kids have got social media now. So there's kids out there doing things on TikTok and Facebook, maybe not as much Facebook, but TikTok mainly, Instagram and stuff, YouTube. They are the comedians of tomorrow. They are making stuff, uploading it, comedians, singers, any other type of artist as well. And so if your kid or your niece or nephew, whatever, has a gift or a talent, nurture it, encourage it. If they want to go to university and do performing arts or study film or whatever, then let them do that, because we also need to occupy this space. We also need to be in the space. We can't just keep letting people tell our stories. We need to tell our own stories. And also beyond that, if there's a talented kid who wants to tell a mainstream story, then yeah, absolutely, that would be absolutely amazing. We've seen how many amazing Black artists there are telling just mainstream stories. They're not confined to just telling Black stories. There are amazing Black directors now telling, making superhero films and stuff for everyone. So it'd be good for us to get into that place where the next generation, Riz Ahmed or whatever, they are just and Riz Ahmed's actually in that place now where he's just telling stories, and he happens to be a brown person playing a character, not a person playing a brown character. So that's the place we want to get to. But also, yes, it's important that we tell our own stories. And for that, we need a generation of artists to come through.
I mean, it's difficult for anybody really in media, whatever field that is, whether it's comedy, whether it's like journalism, like myself, for all young people, let alone people of color. But this is actually the time is now, right? Because we've had there's so many diversity kind of initiatives, opportunities. What tips would you give for kids who want to either go into comedy or want to go into filmmaking? What should they do? Like, what's the first
just do it, especially if it's like filmmaking or comedy or whatever, because you do have this, so you can showcase your abilities on TikTok, on social media, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, even Twitter, even. So if you enjoy making stuff, just keep making stuff, and you'll have an opportunity to keep learning, keep growing. You might do it through formal education. You might go to film school or acting school or something, or you might not be able to afford that, or you might not have the opportunity to do that, but just keep doing it. And eventually, if you do it enough, if you become so good, people can't ignore you.
Yep, that's good advice. So we've got a question. I think we've answered some of this, but have you encountered racism or anti-Muslim hate during your career? And if so, how did you deal with it? Do you think Muslim stereotypes of the system have held back opportunities that would have been easier for your white counterparts? So we've covered some of that, but anything you want to add?
Not really. I mean, if there is, obviously, I'm not saying there isn't a glass ceiling or there isn't unconscious bias against Muslims. Of course there is, but overtly, it's either A, that people are too smart to say overtly, like to say like, oh, because you're Muslim, we're not giving you this opportunity. B, it hasn't happened. Or C, it has happened, but people don't even know that they're doing it. Like it's never been overtly like, oh yeah, because you're Muslim, we're not going to give you this opportunity. That's never happened. And that, yeah, like I said, that might be it because people are too smart to say it in those sort of words. B, because it's never happened, or C, because people have done it not realizing they're doing it.
Have you ever been in a situation where your beliefs and your values, as a Muslim, have kind of held you back? For example, obviously, it's when you work in the gig economy, when you work in like the type of field that you work in, there is a certain culture. You're often performing in places which aren't very sort of halal, let's call it. I mean, is that something you've had to overcome? What did you?
Yeah. I mean, when I was at uni, like I've never drank alcohol. It's not something I've ever done. But I still used to go out when I was at uni with my friends. So, I am used to being in certain places, not drinking. So like bars and places like that, because that's what was. If you wanted a social life at uni, and I went to like a very middle class white uni, Lancaster, that's kind of what you had to do, and I kind of got over it back then. So when it came to doing comedy, and mainstream comedy is in pubs and comedy clubs, which they are a certain type of thing. Even if you go to a theater, they sell alcohol in the theater bars, unless you're performing only community centers, and you're not going to get very far doing that. Then you kind of have to. And every Muslim comedian that you love has to go and perform in these places. It just is. That's just the job. But there are opportunities that I've lost, or not so much lost, but turned down myself because it's just not been right. There are people who'll offer you silly things without thinking, like, oh, an advert for a beer or something. And you're like, yeah, I can't. Who are you talking to? Like, I'm not going to do that. And like, oh, and like they apologize, and you're like, but if that was something else, if a Specsavers or something, yeah, that'd been great. But because it's an alcoholic beverage or whatever, you're like, oh, I've lost out on that money. Or I remember once I love football, and there was an opportunity to do something with football, but it was through Sky Bet, and Sky Bet's a gambling thing, and I was like, I couldn't do it, which is unfortunate because it was quite well paid, and I love football, and it wasn't about gambling. It wasn't me doing a gambling advert. It was me doing a thing, but it was sponsored by the gambling thing. So I was like, it was the gambling part of Sky making content. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I can't do it. Even though I really wanted to. And it looked like a really fun thing. I was like, nah, I'm not gonna I can't do that. So there are things that you yourself have to say no to for your own sake.
Actually, related to that, we've got a question. Somebody's asked, do you think there should be more Muslim females in the industry? If so, how do you feel they tackle the barriers to get into the industry, i.e. late evenings, etc.?
Absolutely, there should be more females, full stop, but absolutely there should be more women in the comedy industry. I would love to see that. There are increasingly more now than there were. But in terms of, how you navigate your late evenings, that's between people and their own families, you'd hope, if anyone is listening and they have, daughters, sisters, nieces, whatever, wives, whatever, and if they are funny, or it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be comedy, it could be acting or whatever, and if they've got a talent for it and they've got an ambition for it, then nurture it and encourage it. Don't hold them back, man, because that's where, if you've got a talent and someone holds you back and you can't fulfill that, you end up becoming bitter, and you don't want that. It's not good energy. So it's different household to household, but I'd absolutely hope that people will encourage this generation, the next generation, to go out and pursue their dreams, and hopefully our young sisters will be empowered to be able to do that, and to fight back against those stereotypes and be able to do that.
I mean, I'm trying to think of the Muslim comedians I know. I know there's I've seen a couple when I went to this charity, like Human Appeal do those charity nights, and other charities do them. And there was this great comedian, and I think her name was Fatiha. Do you know?
Yeah, I know Fatiha. Yeah.
She was really funny.
Yeah, exactly.
Really funny, and so out there.
It'd be good to see, more of that sort of thing.
Yeah. And there's a couple of, I mean, that's the only one I can think of, but it is hard. It is really hard because, like you said, it's a lot of it's for putting the late nights apart. It's also traveling to like all parts of the country. because people go to like near me. I live in Surrey, quite in the middle. It's not in the middle of nowhere, but you have these comedians come to like a pub down the road, like quite big comedians like Omar Dajali and a few others that I can't remember at the top of my head. But they start in these like small pubs in not in London, and it's difficult for anybody who doesn't have the means to go around. So yeah, there are definitely barriers, but I guess if you're passionate enough about something, you can try and overcome them.
Yeah, and as I said, anyone listening, if they've got people in their family or friendship circles that are talented and want to pursue this, then let's nurture it and let's help them overcome those barriers, whatever they need. Let's help them.
So I noticed on Instagram that you've launched your merchandise. So
yeah,
about that, yeah.
Yeah, we're just something that someone approached us and they were like, "Oh, would you be interested in doing merch?" And we were like, "Why not? Why not? Why not?" So we got a few things out there, a few hoodies and t-shirts and stuff. They say stuff like "Wicked." Because I always, in real life, it's not something that I've noticed, but my friends have noticed. I confuse my W and my V's. Obviously, got like I was born in this country, but obviously, like living up north and living in a big Pakistani community. Is just that's just the way that whatever my brain works is sometimes confuses W's and V's. So in real life, before I was doing Mobeen, I was like, I might say unconsciously, I might say, "Oh wow," when I mean wow. But I don't even know I'm doing it. Other people have pointed out to me, and I'm like, "No, I don't do that." And then I've heard myself back going, "Oh, maybe I am. I don't know." So yeah, so Wicked's on there, and OMA, Oh My Allah, that's on there as well. And there's a few things like tote bags and prints of like posters and stuff like that. So yeah, there's a few things there that if people just want to browse, everything is available on my website, tezilyas.com. I think someone earlier was asking what my book's called as well. It's the secret diary of a British Muslim aged 13 3/4. That's the name of the book. I know I can barely say it in one breath, but it's available on Amazon and Waterstones and all those bookshops. It's available as a hardcover, as I showed, also as an audiobook, and also as an ebooks like for Kindle and stuff. So there's different options there for people depending on how they want to consume it. And it makes great Eid gifts.
Yeah, I was just going to say, good for an Eid gift, actually.
Yeah.
Why not?
Treat yourself or treat someone else.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, somebody's sent another question in. Are there halal alternatives to pubs that you have been able to perform in?
I mean, of course, there's the Muslim comedy circuit, like like you said, the charities, they run the gigs like Human Appeal and Penny Appeal and stuff, and they can be fun, and they're generally like hotels and community centers and wedding halls and stuff like that. But the bread and butter, if you want to be a mainstream comedian in this country, if you want to do the stuff that where you get everyone live with the Apollo and all that sort of stuff, you have to be in the mainstream circuit, and the mainstream circuit is in comedy clubs and those places that generally you would say are not halal. That's just the game. When you go Tesco, if you work at Tesco, you have to handle alcohol. If you're a checkout worker at Tesco, that's just part of the job. Or if you're shopping, even you have to go to those places to go shopping, right? It's just part of living in this society. So if you want to be a stand-up comedian, it's just you have to be in those places. And that sometimes is difficult for people. So I understand that is a barrier itself, and some people don't want to do that, and it is what it is, and they have to find a different avenue. Maybe then online is their way of doing those sketches online. Maybe that's their way of trying to get noticed. But if you want to do stand-up comedy on stage, then that's where those gigs are.
So going back to your book, you said it's kind of autobiographical. It's about your childhood and growing up in the 90s. What was your childhood and growing up in the 90s in Blackburn?
It was great.
You'll read your book as well, but
yeah. I mean, it's all in the book, but and the book is full of fun stories and also darker stories and sad stories and drama and lightness and all that sort of stuff, because that's real life, right? But growing up in Blackburn, there's a big Pakistani and Gujarati Muslim community. So Blackburn is split into like white people and Asians, and the Asians are split into Indians and Pakistanis. But the 90%, 95% of the Indians are Gujarati Muslims. So most of the minorities in Blackburn, and they're about 40%, so we're not that much of a minority, are Asian Muslims. Bengali, decent sized Bengali population as well. And so, you know, living in these communities, it was really fun. You know, after school, we play football, we go to mosque for after school mosque classes, madrasa. We'd go to school where it was quite a mixed school, Asians and white kids. And, you know, there'd be about a bit of banter. Sometimes we got too carried away and ended up fighting with each other. You know, it was just I got a big family in London. Big family in Blackburn. A lot of cousins and aunts and uncles. So that was always really, really fun. And there's a lot of greenery here as well. There's a lot of places to just hang out and stuff. So life here was really, really fun and good. And also the housing market is cheap up here, right? So, you know, what you'd have, like, for the same money you'd have to live on an estate in London, you could buy a house in Blackburn for, you know, because the prices, just the house prices are different. So, you know, we were fortunate that we didn't have to live on estates and stuff, but, you know, still, you know, there was some rough times back in the day, riots and all that sort of stuff. But, you know, I think we were blessed to live in that certain time, and we was pre-internet, so we were more ignorant about certain things. And ignorance is bliss, right? Ignorance isn't good, but if you live in ignorance, then you're probably more content because you're not aware of stuff.
Well, I think as a child or as a teen, that is ignorance is bliss more than when you're an adult. So
Completely.
definitely, it was different times, weren't they? Completely
I mean,
different.
definitely more conscious about things now, and there's things that you let slide as a child because you're not aware of them that you wouldn't now. But yeah, things were different then.
We've had another question. To get into the mainstream, I'm assuming they mean comedy. Are
Yeah.
there any places you would suggest for someone new to go and do and get
Okay,
there?
where could you just quickly find out where she's from?
So Istahira is asking this question.
So we could just quickly find out where she's from.
Yeah, whereabouts are you from?
I'm assuming London, but she might not be, but because
Yeah.
it's Facebook, so she could be anywhere.
Yeah.
But could we just quickly find out where she's from, and then I can answer the question and let you know, because I'll go through my encyclopedic knowledge of new material nights and where to start off. Honestly, Tahira, the best thing you could do also is just Google stand-up comedy, either courses or workshops. And that's often the best place to start, because it'll give you a bit of structure in terms of how to write and stuff. But also you'll meet people there who will know where to go to start off. Because I've not done that for like 5-6 years now. I'm slightly out of that part of the circuit. Reading. Okay, so London. You have to go to London, Tahira, for that. There's places in London. I write them down so that the admin can copy and post them. But there's places like the Cavendish Arms, and the night is called Comedy Virgins. So excuse the name, but that is the name. Obviously, it's for new comedians, and that's in Stockwell. And that's a really, really good place to start off for new comedians. And then there's something called the what's it called? There's a Facebook forum for new comedians and for comedians. I've forgotten what it's called off the top of my head, you know, how bad is that? But there are forums on Facebook where new comedians are who can network with each other. But honestly, Tahira, I would recommend going on a stand-up comedy course. I mean, when things open back up again in June, it might be like they'll start running from September or something. It might be you have to wait till then. But I did one at City. The one I did, the workshop I did was at City Lit in
Holborn.
Yes, in Holborn. Thank you.
Yes.
The name escaped me for a second. In Holborn, yeah, that's where I did it. So there'll be like 5-6. There's like 5-6 different ones in London. So if you go to that, they'll do a showcase at the end as well, where you invite your friends and stuff to come watch, and do that because that's a safe setting. And if you enjoy it, then talk to the people who are around you on the course, and you'll find the open mic circuit in London, and there are 2-3 gigs every single evening where you can go and try out your 5 minutes. And once you're there, then you can talk to people and network and find out where the gigs are. But the Cavendish Arms in Stockwell is a really good place to start.
So you can just search on Facebook for new comedian groups or something. And
yeah, there is one, but I've forgotten the name of it off the top of my head, probably because I'm fasting. So I'm my brain's slightly turning to mush.
That's all right. You mentioned something about Muslim comedy club or circuit. Is that, or did I?
No, when I mean Muslim comedy circuit, I don't mean like a formal circuit. I mean, there's, you know, there are like it's mainly the charity sector that put on gigs for Muslim audiences. Yeah. So, you know, you got Jumla Appeal and Penny Appeal are probably the two biggest ones in this country that put on tours later in the year. They usually do it around November, December time, and they tour the country as a part of their fundraising. So they put on an entertainment of comedy, and in between, in the middle, they do a fundraising bit to try and raise money for really, really amazing causes. And then
they're brilliant. Sorry, I was going to say
they're always really good, really
so
fun, aren't they?
because they're actually they're family friendly, which is really hard to do because most comedy is not family friendly.
And I'll say something about that is like comics, we don't enjoy doing family friendly gigs. Like we enjoy those gigs because, you know, it's different, but it's not something that we choose to do.
No, it's hard.
But we understand there's a responsibility because, you know, not everyone wants to come out to the Comedy Store or top secret comedy club. I understand that. And some of that is too much for some members of our community. I get that. So it is important for them to feel included. But as a comic, as an artist, that's difficult for us because we are censoring ourselves. There's material that we don't do. There's language that we don't use. So yeah, there's definitely things that we hold back on and stuff. So it's it's definitely a challenge, but yeah, it's a welcome one. And you should, you know, if we can't gig to our own people, then, you know, what hope is there?
Yeah, absolutely. You're talking about London and Blackburn. Like, there's a north-south divide. What do you honestly think of Londoners? You're very northern, you know, you're proud of your roots. Like, what do you make? I mean, you've lived in London, so I guess you've got the experience, but where do you prefer living?
Oh, undoubtedly up north. And the air is cleaner, the people are friendlier, the food is better.
Is it?
It is.
Okay.
Actually, no, let me clarify that. Let me clarify that. Their seafood is better up north. Hands down. Like, it's not even close. Obviously, if you're into more, and I'm Desinis, that's, you know, but if you're into like sort of Middle Eastern foods or, you know, wider world foods, Chinese, Italian, that sort of thing, then yeah, maybe London is a little bit better. Not that we don't have our places up north, we do. But, you know, we got walk to walk up here as well. You know, we're not playing about. But yeah, maybe London is better for those things, more diversity of food. You know, we don't really get much African food up here either. You know, even if Nando's has traveled, which originated in South Africa. But yeah, in terms of desi food, last member of community that I am, it's not even close.
Really?
It's not even
close. I'll have to take your word for it.
Takeaways are trash in London. I'm sorry to anyone who owns a takeaway, trash. Come to Blackburn, and you'll find out what a good takeaway is. I miss it.
Well, okay, well, that's quite a statement that all takeaways in London.
I will die on that hill.
Right, Tahir has asked another question. Did you ever have imposter syndrome?
Oh yeah, all the time. I still have it now. You feel like you don't belong. I'm a working class kid from Blackburn, Asian kid. Of course, like when I'm in these places, I'm like, why am I here? You know, I didn't do drama at uni like a lot of my friends did. So, you know, it's, yeah, you feel it, but you just have to get over it. And the more you do it, the more experience you get, the more validation you feel in yourself that, you know, I do deserve to be here. And if you're not given the opportunity, they give you the opportunity because you deserve it. So you have to remember that. But it's hard not to feel it sometimes. So
where can people come and see you now? You're going on tour. I think everything's going back to, well, normal.
Yeah. So the gigs start coming back in the next couple of weeks, and I will be gigging around the country. But I'm on my big national tour from September onwards, and I will be playing dates in London, playing in the London Leicester Square Theatre, which is an amazing venue. But I'm all over the country, from Aberdeen at the top of Scotland all the way to Lyme Regis in like Dorset or Devon or wherever that is, and everywhere in between. Of course, Edinburgh, Glasgow, Newcastle, Leeds, Blackburn, Manchester, Birmingham, Nottingham, Northampton, Peterborough, Brighton, Bristol, all those places in between, and a few places I haven't mentioned as well. So go to my website, tezilyas.com. If the admin could please write that in the could write this website and copy and paste it into the Facebook forum or whatever, that would be appreciated, because that's the links to everything, to buy my book, to buy my merchandise and to buy my tickets as well for my tour. That's the links to everything. tezilyas.com/hello.
Lovely. So we've got one more question.
When will I do a stand-up comedy show on Netflix? The thing is, Mariam, right? These things aren't up to us. If it was up to me, Mariam, I'd have done one already. That's up to them. So when you ask an artist, when are you going to do this? No, ask the platform. Bug the platform. Ask them when they're going to have me, because it's up to them. They hold the keys. So ask Netflix on whatever social media platform you use. Ask Netflix. Tell Netflix you want Tez Ilyas on their platform. That's when they'll do it. It's not. I can't be like, hello Netflix, can I have a comedy special, please? That's not how it works. So
that's not how it works.
So yeah, tell them.
Okay, cool. So yeah, everybody get in touch with Netflix. We've only got a minute left, I'm afraid. So it's been really fun. I think what I can conclude is that it's not easy for anybody to have a successful career in the media, but there are options for our young people, who don't want to pursue those traditional careers. And it's a great time for diversity. It's a great time. Everyone's trying to champion diversity. And, some media organizations are crying out for, those stories that are unheard. So with that, thank you, Tez, for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
The website if you want to buy anything. Thank you for everybody for listening. Jazakallah. Coming up at 2 is the Humbly History Hour with Talha Hassan. My next show is on Monday at 1 o'clock, where there'll be a slight change of pace. I'll be talking about the challenges of new atheism with Abu Alia, so it'll be a bit more serious. And this has been the Let's Talk About It show on Ramadan Radio. Assalamu alaikum,
everyone.
Wa barakatuhu. Thank you.